Hello, today I'm going to talk a little bit about setting up and using masks for your VRChat avatar, specifically with regard to image textures as masks. This video, like my other videos, is unscripted, so thanks for having patience as I kind of figure it out as I go. We understand that our avatar has materials on it to make it look the way it does, and those materials are made out of textures. For example, this shirt that I have going on right here has this texture to define its color, as well as some other textures, and this texture as a normal map, which manipulates kind of how light reflects, creating smaller details than we can have with geometry. There's all sorts of different types of textures, but one that you may not be familiar with is mask. So what is a mask? Let's say I want to use glitter on this shirt. Well, unfortunately, the glitter is affecting the whole shirt. That might be fine, but what if I want just one area? This is where masks come in. In a lot of tabs on various shaders, I'm using Poiyomi in the example, you'll see a little masking tab. And what you'll do is you'll drop your mask in like that. And you'll see now it's only affecting the area that we specified in the texture. So where do these mask textures come from? A lot of times you may want to make one specific to your avatar, specific to your material or texture or whatever. As you can see, this one spells out dumb and is like perfectly fitted to my shirt. So how did I make it and how does it work? The mask lets us close off and select certain areas of our texture to be affected by effects. To make or edit a mask, you can use any sort of image editing program. That could be something like Substance Painter, could be something like Photoshop or GIMP or Photopea online. But basically, this is what that mask looks like laid out flat. You'll notice underneath it all, I have my original texture, so I understand, okay, this is the front of the shirt, this is the back of the shirt, these are the sleeves of the shirt. And to create the mask over top of it, we have to understand what the colors of the mask actually mean, how they work. You can think of a mask as a grayscale scale, right? Where things that are completely black are going to be masked off. They're not going to be touched at all. But things that are completely white are the shape that you're cutting out, 100% part of the mask. This is where the glitter will show up. This is where the emissions will show up. And you can use all of those values in between to create like a blending of effects. So for our case, I don't want glitter to be on most of the shirt, so I have a little black background. And then for the area that I do want to have glitter, I will make white. Then when we look back over at Unity and look at our same texture, it makes sense where the glitter is showing up and where it's not showing up. I also talked a little bit about in-between values. So for this example, I have no glitter on most of the shirt, but on a small portion of the shirt, I have 100% glittery. Here's what those in-between values look like using a mask in Emission. If we look at our texture again, right here, you can see that the things that are pure white are 100% affected by the emission. The things that are less and less are getting darker and darker. You'll also notice I have these values, the 256, 192, 128, 64. They show up on the back of this as well. And that's because technically, well, in Poiyomi's case anyway, it's not actually a 1% to 100% range. It's based on a 0 to 255 range. So you have 256 possibilities of how bright or not bright you want it to be. But in summary, the closer to white something is, the more affected it will be. The darker something is, the more masked off, the less affected it will be by whatever effect you're trying to create. And the next two features I'm going to talk about, pathing and reading and writing to masks, which we'll get to later, are Poiyomi-specific features. The next level up from this incremental progression of 100%, 75%, 50%, 25% is creating smooth gradations. And with those, we can also create fun animated effects. In Poiyomi shader, it's called pathing, I believe. Let me go into pathing, and there's an intimidating amount of settings in pathing, but just hang with me for a second. So you'll see we have our color and mask, which is, something that we already talked about a little bit. But what I'm actually interested in here is the path map. RGBA path map basically just means that in this single texture, we have 4 channels. So we can actually put 4 different maps inside of this one texture if we're clever about it. So let me do the drop down. These are those 4 different channels. I'm just going to show you one for today, but you can basically, if you want to experiment with stacking multiple effects on top of each other, you can do that on your own. But I've created a map, put it here. And what you'll notice is it actually starts to move and fill up kind of in a linear sort of fashion. How did we make this effect? The same principles as masks, but it's applied in a gradient fashion, like I said. So let's look at this map really quick. I have these little gradient shapes, and you'll notice they're getting dark to light, like so. And what's happening to our shapes on our material? Well, they're filling up from dark to light. So what we've actually done is we've created a set of instructions for this effect to flow and fill up in a linear order. So this is a simple example that I've created, but you can also use any sort of noise texture for an effect like this as well. Let me find one. Yeah, something like this. It's just doing the same thing. It's filling up from dark to light, except this time it's not a smooth gradient. It's just choosing the different squares at the darkest and then moving on to the ones that are the lightest. And here's what that noise texture looks like up close for anybody curious. We've talked about black and white masks. We've talked about the steps between those. We've talked about creating smooth gradients and using pathing. The last thing I'm going to talk about is getting different aspects of your material to all work together to read and write masks. Poiyomi Toon Shader has a system called global masking that lets you share masks in between different layers, different effects of your material. So if we go down into our global modifiers and data tab, we have the option to go to global data and masks. We want global mask, we want textures, and then we have 4 little tabs. Each one of these little tabs can fit 4 more channels. So we can have a total of 16 global masks on our avatar, basically. This is mask 1, and then within that mask 1, there's RGBA, and then mask 2, there's RGBA, and basically that just packs all of your different masks into textures to save space, but you can have a total of 16 masks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my little heart texture in the mask texture 1 R slot, and I'm going to merge them all together. Great. So the heart texture that I showed you now lives in this global mask slot, and we can later access it in different effects of our shader. So for example, let me go into the special effects tab. Let me go into the emission tab and add some emission strength. Then under the emission mask, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the dropdown. You'll see I have the option to drag in my heart texture here, but I don't have to. I can actually go over to where it says global mask, go for mask 1, R channel, and you'll see that it has that heart texture in there already. So why is this important? Number 1, it makes your avatar more optimized. You don't have a bunch of textures floating around that are duplicates. You don't need redundant textures. And number 2, it makes your job easier as an avatar creator. If, for example, you're like, oh shoot, I actually wanted this heart to be a star, instead of going through all of your different effects and trying to replace the star over and over, all you have to do is go into your global masking and update the texture, and all of your effects will follow. You'll also notice that there is a little drop down to the side of our selector that lets us choose the blend mode for our mask. This is important because it lets you choose how you want different masks and different effects to interact with each other, or you can maybe choose to invert them. So for example, I'll go to my glitter dropdown, and this is where those blending modes come in. You'll notice it's actually applying the sparkles to the same exact area where we have the heart, right? What if I want it to be in every other area except that? I can change it from multiply to subtract. And you'll notice not only is the glitter in all of the areas around the heart, but actually you can also use the blend modes to combine with any other existing mask you may have in the mask slot. So for example, if I put a noise texture in here and I have it pan, I can change how our global mask interacts with my existing mask texture by using these blend modes. That's pretty much all I have for talking about masks. It can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. And I just now realized that my I was doing tracking stuff, and I've been frozen like this for a while, so I do apologize. But thank you for sticking through. I hope you learned something. If you have questions, I do my best to get through all the comments if you have any, so leave them there. And normally I take this time to promote my store, tell you to buy stuff, but instead I'm going to say, if you're a creative right now in the US or otherwise, stay strong and keep using your power to create amazing, cool, life-changing things. Express yourself and don't let anybody tell you that you can't keep doing that. Sometimes in times of darkness and despair and whatever, I lose my inspiration and I have a lot of trouble making things, but don't sacrifice that form of self-expression if you can avoid it. So stay strong, keep making cool stuff, and thank you for watching. I will see you the next time I make one of these wildly cursed tutorials.